Back in the 1970s, while some of us were happily embracing modernity by munching away on a mixture of flavourings and preservatives,
and we're content to buy all our shopping down at the local supermarket,
an alternative approach to food had been gathering momentum.
In the last 5 years, business has doubled. For every health food shop in 1960, there are now 10. Hundreds of chemist shops are now selling health foods. There are even large health food supermarkets, and no longer do enthusiasts have to rely on backstreet herbalists.
By 1970, this lifestyle that had once been seen as the reserve of hippies and weirdos was starting to go mainstream.
Can I have fruit yogurt, please?
Take a lesson from the rabbit. Get yourself on that greenery habit. That must be the food of love.
The answer, of course, is that you are what you eat. Over the years, by appealing to the young, they've picked up disciples all over the world. A healthy diet leads to a healthy mind.
As supermarket shelves got stocked with an ever-growing array of processed food, more and more people became concerned at the effect it was having on us.
It's the chemist, in fact, who has helped the manufacturer to multiply, preserve, colour, flavour and improve his products. Chemicals that some people would say were unnatural, unnecessary and perhaps dangerous.
And these sceptics included celebrity chef Robert Carrier.
I'm worried about our diet today, because I think if we're all eating frozen peas and we're eating TV dinners, and it's going to affect our health first of all, and it's going to affect our mental stability, and it's also going to affect our libido.
The movement also had a more unlikely heroine, whose own success was founded on helping other people maintain a healthy level of desire.
That grand dame of the romantic novel, Barbara Cartland.
Now her passion for romantic love is shared with an evangelical fervour for honey and vitamins. Opening a health food store in Croydon is part of a campaign to make her readers pure in more than hearts.
Ladies and gentlemen, I must first of all tell you that Mr. Lee Richardson was the person who first started to warn us about pollution, about the terrible chemicals in our food, and he did so 10 years ago. And I started to help him 6 years ago, and everybody said, oh, cranks, you know, freaks, new ideas. And now we're so respectable. We have Prince Philip and Mr. Nixon with us, and so everybody's on the same bandwagon.
Ah, of course, President Nixon. Well, who could have asked for a better role model?
I was with my mother, who's 92, 2 days ago, and she said to me, well, darling, she said, when you want me to die, just stop my vitamins. And everybody who comes here feel happy, gay, young, and God bless you all.
Lord knows I'm good for you. Lord knows I'm good for you. Lord knows I'm good for you, too.
Barbara Cartland would go on to champion health food throughout the rest of her life and wrote several books on the subject.
The nation's favourite TV cook also did her bit to reintroduce us Brits to a more wholesome approach to eating.
There we are, the Grant loaf, the easiest loaf in the world. Very crusty, very delicious, full of flavour.
The real food movement was a backlash to what was seen as the increasing artificiality of modern food. But as the decade went on and it grew, it started to attract its own critics.
Between us last year, we spent £25 million on health foods, which is a lot of money. And if you like the taste, that's fair enough. But we were wondering why they're called health foods. Take, for example, sea salt.
Oil pollution, mercury, cadmium, chromium, lead. All that's in seawater.
Wouldn't you know?
Despite the criticism, by the end of the decade, even the supermarkets got in on the action.
Selling items that had once purely been the reserve of specialist shops for people in sandals.
Like yoghurt, muesli.
Alpen is good things from the good earth. Pure and simple. Alpen. Alpen. Alpen.
In the 70s, we began to demand healthier foods as more and more of us realised just how removed we had become from the process of food production and nature.
And people began to dream of a simple life. Ah, ethical living, making your self-sufficient dream become a reality.
Back in the 1970s, one on-screen couple took the plunge. leaving their humdrum 9-to-5 lifestyle to embark on what would become known to us as the good life.
The antics of Tom and Barbara Good have subsequently been credited with influencing a generation of Britons to embrace their pastoral heritage and revert to making their living off the land.
Over in Cambridgeshire, Simon and Jacqueline Saggers are a 21st century incarnation of this much-loved 70s legacy.
I think Tom and Barbara's motivation was really lifestyle. You know, they wanted to get out of the rat race, get out of the whole idea of just having to earn money for a living and not do anything else. Growing things, being in touch with the land, all those things I think are always going to be important for us humans. So I think it's a really deep-rooted and primeval thing that they touched in. I think that's partly why it's so successful.
But whilst the image of a suburban middle-class couple opting out of the rat race might have been game for a laugh for many of us, for others at the time, it was a real lifestyle choice.
For the last 4 years, an old farmhouse in Norfolk has been home for the Shrub family, a commune of young people who live together, who try and survive on their own resources, and who quietly reject the values of the consumer society which surrounds them and to which they all once belonged.
And this thing of buying and buying is contributing to the world's problems, so that we hope that by setting some kind of example, perhaps people will see that they can do with less, and it will help the world's problems.
And by the 1970s, this voice for change was beginning to be taken a whole lot more seriously.
Ecology is about living together in a world that's changing fast, tackling our problems with a completely fresh approach. And the Ecology Party, or ECO for short, is Britain's fastest growing political party.
I don't need pleasure, I don't feel pain.
ECO stresses the importance of self-reliance, of living within our means through a stable, non-polluting economy, recycling waste and providing far more of our own food than we do now.
Born in the 1970s, these same issues still drive green politics today. But it's how we grow our food that is underpinning Simon's 21st century good life.
Now we understand that the food system that we're running is so intensive, it's so resource heavy, that we need to start looking at that and addressing it, instead of having a farm where you've got one man running 1,000 acres really just because of oil, which, albeit a fantastic substance, is going to run out. And we need to try and find ways to get more people back onto the land, actually living and working and doing it in a way which isn't oil dependent and which does as well give us a more fulfilling lifestyle.
Whilst motivations for living the good life have evolved, there's no denying that getting greener fingered has something to offer us all.
I think there isn't anything better than growing the food that you eat, where you're actually able to go and dig potatoes or harvest your run of beans and take them straight into the kitchen and cook them. That's a fantastic thing to be able to do, and everyone can do it more than we're doing at the moment. Even on a small scale in small gardens, people can get involved in growing their own food.
Turning back time like this isn't exactly many people's idea of progress. But as third-generation farmers on the same plot, the Saggers knew they could make it work.
It was once a mixed organic smallholding here. We're repeating history, but Simon's father took it to the intensive farming that was the norm when he was a young man. So battery chickens was something that, was being encouraged and funded from government. So that's the route he went. That was what his life was about. So for him to see us take on a handful of chickens, just for a small number of eggs, and then do the vegetables and the fruit and the honey, he just thought, how can that patchwork really work? How can that be a proper living? And that's where I think they were just very apprehensive that we'd gone down the wrong route.
But it turns out, as well as managing to grow most of their own food, any spare produce has been easily sold through their own veg box scheme.
I really do think people are wanting to eat more healthily and more ethically. The very fact we're a very small organic box supplier and we've got a constant waiting list and people ringing up all the time wanting to find out if they can join the list because not very many people do fresh food cut that day. You know, they do a lot of organic box schemes around the country. But to actually know you've picked it up that afternoon and it was cut that morning, I think people are kind of beginning to realise that the fresher the food is, the healthier it is.
Buying organic, local, fresh produce has seen food become central to the whole environmental movement.
But where on-screen pioneers Tom and Barbara Good played to a stereotype with their pea-pod burgundy and back-garden methane generators,
living the good life now is as much about accepting the global need to develop sustainable lifestyle as it is about, well, living a good life.
So, homemade elderflower champagne.
Homemade?
Homemade.
No, I'm done. I would definitely prefer to be living the good life now compared to the 1970s. We're just all so much more knowledgeable about what we're doing in terms of growing the food, presenting the food, eating the food, cooking the food. I mean, it's a more sophisticated and more exciting game now.
I think that the term the good life means so many different things to so many different people, and ultimately everyone's got to find their own answer to what the good life is. For us, it's been about real change that does mean that we are able to live more sustainably, closer to the land, and without the resources that we're currently gobbling up.